Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1992B, and today's date is October 10th, 2019, and the title of the episode is Bombshells Dropped, Hunter Biden, Barack Obama Missing, IG FISA Report on the way. Now, before I get started, I wanted to talk about protecting yourself. With all the common threats nowadays in America, one of the best things you can invest in for your home protection is a Patriot Brother flashlight. Patriot Brother wants to extend a special 20% Patriot discount to all customers. Never waste money on batteries again. The Patriot Brother X is solar-powered, life-saving emergency strobe light. Charge your phone anywhere, anytime with USB port. Take advantage now and give you and your family the gift of night protection. Click the link below. Let's get into the economic collapse, political and geopolitical news. Everything is about to change now. The impeachment and the whistleblower complaint, they have hit a major roadblock. The Patriots just shut the whole thing down. And Dems are now saying that they are not going along with the fake impeachment plan. Instead of gaining impeachment steam, they are losing impeachment steam. The deep state players are now acting out. Biden wants the mainstream media to stop reporting on what happened in Ukraine. Pelosi and Schiff are being caught up in a major lie, changing the rules and not following them. The Patriots are making them feel the pain. We'll be talking about how the Patriots shut down the entire plan. But first, we have another TV news person who is involved in a sexual harassment complaint. NBC News chief Andrew Lack, once accused of mishandling sexual harassment complaints at NBC, well, it looks like he preyed on a female and pressured her. And when the affair was over, well, it looks like he put pressure on her. Now, Jane Wallace said they had a relationship, but after it was over, Wallace claimed Lack bullied her out of the job she loved and lorded his power over her when their relationship completely soured. So once again, we're seeing another individual being brought up on sexual harassment charges. And again, like we said before, this is going to continue. Now, Biden is now getting hit from all sides. The Senate is calling Giuliani. We have Lindsey Graham, who is threatening to have Volcker testify and then release the transcript publicly and do the whole thing publicly, which means it's going to be transparent. Ukraine has been investigating Biden since February. And Joe Biden, he does not like what's going on. He is acting out in panic. He sent a scathing letter to the New York Times executive editor, Dean Beckett, for running an op-ed by Peter Schweizer, who laid out the former vice president's pattern of corruption and calling for the federal government to investigate his dealings in both China and Ukraine. In the letter, Biden expressed outrage for printing a baseless, and here's the word, conspiracy theory. It's funny, when it doesn't go with their agenda, they call it a conspiracy theory. Then we come to find out that the anti-Trump Ukrainian ambassador was monitoring John Solomon. Last week, House Democrats called in fired U.S. Ambassador Marie Yovanovitch to testify in their fake impeachment proceedings. Ambassador Yovanovitch is a noted Trump hater who blocked Ukrainian officials from traveling to the United States to hand over evidence of Obama misconduct during the 2016 election to President Trump. Yovanovitch was a U.S. ambassador to Ukraine during the 2016 election when the Ukrainian government was colluding with the DNC and Hillary campaign to undermine the U.S. presidential election. John Solomon announced that the former ambassador was monitoring the reporters digging into Ukrainian lawlessness. There is evidence now that Yovanovitch was spying on John Solomon. And this is much broader and bigger than is being reported. And we're going to be learning a lot more about this. Let's go back to post 3374. This is July 8th, 2019. And it says surveillance of Sarah Carter, John Solomon terminated. Sleep well, which means they were being surveilled. Well, who is surveilling them? It looks like the ambassador through the deep state. Post 3375. And Anon said, how the heck were they allowed to do it this long? Holy smokes, FBI, CIA. Q says, disguised under the leaker target program. So Sarah and John were under a deep state surveillance. And we can see that it has all come true now. Now, the deep state, they were trying to put pressure on Rudy Giuliani when he was gathering evidence in Ukraine, but it didn't work. Rudy Giuliani exposed the Bidens, but now they're trying to discredit him. He tweeted out the following: "The corrupt WP is tirelessly working on stories to discredit me, stooping so low as to actually ask me about my pending divorce, to see if it affects my work. It doesn't. Meanwhile, they don't hold Biden accountable to answer questions about 4 decades of selling public office." And then we come to find out that there are 2 individuals, associates of Giuliani, where he got the information about what they were doing in Ukraine, and it seems that they were arrested. Now, he warned that the deep state had plans to smear his name. He said, "What I want to tell them is every time you come after me, another piece of evidence is going to come out, because they give me a platform to get it out, and I got plenty more of this. This is what they call evidence, not lies, evidence." And sure enough, the deep state arrested 2 associates of Trump's personal attorney, Rudy Giuliani. This is exactly what Rudy predicted would happen. There were 2 associates who were arrested in what state? In New York. The 2 men, Lev Parnas and Igor Fruman, are Soviet-born. They are United States citizens. They were under investigation by federal prosecutors in the Southern District of New York. Now, it's not clear what the charges are against them, and they're saying it has to do with campaign violations. And we know that if you really look closely at this, you'll notice that the arrests were in New York. New York is also pushing a case to get Trump's tax returns. This will not work. Truth, facts, documentation will override all of this. Just because you arrest someone doesn't mean you have actual evidence of wrongdoing. Remember Flynn? They arrested him. They were going to set his jail sentence. Do they actually have evidence against him? No. And I do believe this is the same type of hit job. This is a show, just like the raid on Roger Stone, to show the American people that Trump and Rudy Giuliani, they had something to do with Ukraine. And guess what? They have nothing to do with it. Remember, Rudy Giuliani is out there and he has all this evidence, and they're going to try to discredit him any way they possibly can. This is part of the show. They have the mainstream media and they're going to blast this all over the place so people think something's happening when it really isn't. Think about the Mueller investigation. How many times did they say indictments? How many times did they say that Trump's kids were going to be arrested? Think about how many times they said Trump was going to go to jail. The same thing is happening right now. Think about Biden. Think about how he said, "Hey, I didn't know anyone in Burisma. I never spoke to my son. I didn't know anything about his business dealings." We know that he was lying. We know that he's lying about never speaking to his son or meeting other individuals. And now his story is falling apart. Joe Biden now is changing his story. Joe Biden changed up his story, telling reporters he did say at one point that it came out that he was on the board. I said, "I sure hope the hell you know what you're doing." As more is revealed, the worse Joe Biden is going to look. Take a listen to what he said to reporters.
He did say at one point that it came out that he was on the board. I said, "I sure hope the hell you know what you're doing."
Yeah. In terms of what? In terms of how much he's being paid or his job?
No, but what his job was.
And as every day passes, it's getting worse and worse for Joe Biden. Then we come to find out that Hunter Biden's Chinese firm invested in a company blacklisted by the U.S. Bohai Harvest RST BHR, a private equity firm bankrolled by the Chinese government that is tied to Hunter Biden, invested in a company that has been blacklisted by the U.S. government. BHR owns a stake in Mergv Technology, a Chinese technology company that designs image recognition and deep learning software. Mergv, whose technology is in line with China's efforts to use facial recognition systems to boost its civilian surveillance capacities, is also partially backed by the Chinese tech giant Alibaba. The company, which plans to launch its initial public offering sometime later this year, was blacklisted by the Trump administration earlier this week on the grounds that its technology has been used by the Chinese government to repress the Muslim minorities in China. So we can see that the Bidens, it's getting worse and worse, and it continues to get worse for the Bidens. The Ukrainian Parliament News revealed something very interesting about the Bidens. Former Vice President Joe Biden was personally paid $900,000 for lobbying activities from Burisma Holdings. Now, this is coming from Ukrainian MP Durkak. Durkak publicized the documents at a press conference at the Interfax Ukraine agency. And he says the records describe the mechanism of getting money by Biden Sr. This was the transfer of Burisma Group's funds for lobbying activities, as investigators believe personally to Joe Biden through a lobbying company. Funds in the amount of $900,000 were transferred to the U.S.-based company Rosemont Seneca Partners, which is affiliated with Biden. The payment reference was a payment for consultative services. Eric Trump tweeted out the following. Board members of ExxonMobil, one of the world's largest and most prestigious energy companies, make $330,000 annually. Hunter Biden, with no industry knowledge or duties, was being paid $600,000 annually. All of this while the average annual salary in Ukraine is $1,700 per year. Trump responded to Eric, "Where's Hunter Biden? He's disappeared while the fake news protects his crooked daddy." Eric Trump asks, "Where's Obama? He is eerily quiet about Joe Biden and his family cashing in on his watch. Speaks volumes." As we know, the whistleblower complaint cannot go anywhere. Why? Trump released his phone transcript and countered the whistleblower complaint. The deep state is getting so desperate to get Trump. The whistleblower attorney are now issuing coupons for a rate discount if the whistleblowers come forward. This doesn't seem right. This seems kind of odd, don't you think? The law firm representing the so-called whistleblower at the center of the impeachment movement targeting Trump, as well as multiple other anti-Trump whistleblowers, was so desperate to find Trump administration informants that they previously offered those who come forward discounted prices for legal representation. Compass Rose Legal tweeted out, "Given seriousness of the situation, CLG will drop rates for IC plus White House staff contemplating disclosures." Lawyer up. You think they were desperate? Absolutely. Now, we know the deep state is trying to keep the identity of the whistleblower a secret. They're using the excuse that this person is getting death threats, even though nobody knows who this person is. There's a reason they do not want anyone to know who this person is. If the person was revealed, people would dig into who this person is, and it would be game over. But Trump does have the right to face his accuser. Former U.S. Attorney Brett Tolman says the whistleblower historically is revealed after they file their complaint. And typically, the whistleblower is interviewed and interrogated by both sides. Democrats do not want the leaker to be revealed because of his far-left politics and associations. And Democrats know the whistleblower's information is highly flawed. There was no blackmail or threats, as the partisan whistleblowers suggested. Democrats also do not want the Trump administration to be able to cross-examine their partisan anti-Trump leaker. Democrats are also withholding documents from the Trump administration. Trump tweeted out the following. "Why isn't the IG investigating the so-called whistleblower? All bad info." Now, Ukrainian President Zelensky came out in defense of Trump once again. So let's get this straight. We have the phone transcript, and the person Trump spoke to is countering everything the deep state, the whistleblower, is saying. So how does the deep state have a case? They don't. What did Zelensky say? Zelensky has insisted he was unaware of Trump's decision to withhold military aid before their now infamous July 25th phone call. He wouldn't have known this because they didn't realize it until a month later. There was no blackmail, Zelensky said during a press conference. "I had no idea the military aid was held up." Remember, The issue of whether Mr. Trump offered Zelensky a quid pro quo, U.S. military support in exchange for investigation into former Vice President Joe Biden in Ukraine, is one of the main focuses of an impeachment inquiry underway in Washington. And here we have Trump. He released his phone transcript, and we have the individual he was speaking to and saying, listen, there was no blackmail. I had no idea about any of this stuff. And we know the investigation into Biden was started months before the phone call. I do believe it was February that they were investigating Biden. Trump tweeted out the following. The president of Ukraine just stated again in the strongest of language that the President Trump applied no pressure and did absolutely nothing wrong. He used the strongest language possible that should end this Democrat scam, but it won't because the Dems and the media are fixed. Pence then ups the ante. He says he will do something that will clear Trump. And he says, I will release my transcripts of 2 phone calls with President Zelensky. Pence said his conversation with Zelensky would exonerate Trump from Democrat claims of quid pro quo. So let me see. Trump is being transparent. We have Pence being transparent. They're both being transparent to the American people. I think it's time for Obama and Biden to be transparent. Release their transcripts with Ukraine and show the people that there was no corruption. There was no quid pro quo. And if you can't do this, guess what? That means you're hiding something. Now, we know that Pelosi and Schiff, they're pushing the fake impeachment with the fake whistleblower. But the Trump administration just countered the entire fake impeachment push. Paul Sperry tweeted out the following. White House letter creates stalemate with House, pushing action into courts, effectively halting impeachment in its tracks. Dems hope to ram through impeachment by Christmas, but now face misfortune of selling it during election year. Meantime, Durham's Spygate investigation picks up steam. Devin Nunes explains it all. He says the following. Speaker Pelosi cannot engage the courts for support against the executive branch because the House has not created their judicial authority. As a result of their lack of vote to initiate the House impeachment inquiry, there is no penalty for noncompliance behind any committee subpoena. Attempting to compel testimony that crosses through the separation of powers and goes even further in an attempt to penetrate the firewall around executive privilege requires the House or a committee therein to carry judicial authority. Judicial authority is not absolute authority, but rather a legal reference and framework that forms the basis for an impeachment compulsion demand or subpoena by the House. Judicial authority is the House saying they have a legal basis to make a demand. The reason judicial authority is necessary is because creating judicial authority via the legislative branch, full chamber vote, gives the executive branch access to appeal any legislative demand via the judicial branch using the federal courts. So let's sum this up. Here's the bottom line. Judicial authority granted by a full House vote gives the House of Representatives more authority in their impeachment construct. However, judicial authority also grants the executive branch a path to appeal via the judicial branch. Because the lawfare Pelosi roadmap intends to subvert judicial authority, it is destined by design to end up running headfirst into a constitutional problem, specifically separation of power and executive privilege. That predictable constitutional issue will end up with arguments to the Supreme Court. That is why the Democrats have been working for months to delegitimize the Supreme Court. That is why the background attacks against the Supreme Court were started months ago. Did it work? Think about it. They're trying to delegitimize Rudy Giuliani for gathering all this information. They're trying to delegitimize the Supreme Court because they know they are stuck. They can't have the vote. If they have the vote and it's turned down, they're screwed. If they have the vote and it goes through, then it goes to the Senate. The Senate then is in control. It's completely out of their hands. Think about what is happening here. And if the Supreme Court has to make a decision because they didn't take a vote and it goes to the courts, they're screwed. It's not constitutional. They know this. They're backed into a corner. If you notice, their plan is falling apart on all fronts. Pelosi is facing heat from the Dems. Some are turning on her and others want the vote now. Now we know that Trump has been pushing Clinton to run in the 2020 election. He's trying to put her in the spotlight, and I believe they have something special planned for her. Judicial Watch is now pushing Clinton to testify in her email scandal. Judicial Watch announced that a federal court will soon rule on whether Hillary Clinton and her top aide can be questioned under oath by Judicial Watch lawyers about the email and the Benghazi controversies. The court has already granted additional discovery to Judicial Watch and now is considering Clinton's objections, filed on September 23rd, to being questioned. Judicial Watch filed its response to Clinton on October 3rd. So, Judicial Watch, Tom Fitton, wants to get Hillary under oath, and he wants her to testify. Trump is pushing Clinton to enter the race. He wants her in the spotlight. Why? Because it's getting real for Hillary Clinton. Think about it. Judicial Watch, Barr, and now Ukraine are investigating Hillary Clinton's emails. Yes, you heard this right. They're hitting her from all sides. This is why Trump and the Patriots want her to run again. It will put her in the spotlight, and the public will be watching. And add one more thing to this. Ukrainian President Zelensky says his country will happily investigate whether Ukraine interfered in the 2016 election, saying that they will look into Hillary and her emails. I wonder where the server is. I wonder if they do have all those emails. It's really starting to feel like they have it all. Now, Rudy Giuliani, he tweeted out a bombshell. Remember, he said he was going to release more and more evidence if the deep state keeps this up. And guess what? The deep state made their move. He's making his move. He said, breaking news. This email exchange between Ali Chalupa, consultant for the DNC, and Luis Miranda, comms director for the DNC, dated May 3rd, 2016, is one of the many instances providing collusion between Ukrainian officials and DNC Clinton campaign. This is what it says. This is back May 3rd, 2016. A lot more coming down the pipe. I spoke to a delegation of 68 investigative journalists from Ukraine last Wednesday at the Library of Congress. The Open World Society's forum, they put me on the program to speak specifically about Paul Manafort, and I invited Michael Isikoff, whom I've been working with for the past few weeks, and connecting him to the Ukrainians. More offline tomorrow, since there is a big Trump component you and Lauren need to be aware of that will hit in next few weeks, and something I'm working on you should be aware of. Since I started digging into Manafort, these messages have been a daily occurrence on my Yahoo account despite changing my password often. Look what's happening here. Giuliani is showing the connections. Wave after wave, and guess what? This is just the opening act. He didn't even get to the meat of it yet. He's building, and soon it's going to be an utter disaster. And now we have Seth Rich, and he's back in the news. Remember when the FBI said that Seth Rich's DNC computer and emails were investigated? The FBI now claims no related docs in the Freedom of Information Act requests. The attorney requesting documents demands the courts to step in now. So if they did investigate, there should be some records. So what do we have here? The FBI have been contacted by the Department of Justice about Seth Rich. The FBI has been examining Seth Rich's computer. The FBI was looking into Seth Rich's Gmail account. The FBI investigated an attempt to hack into Seth Rich's computer and finally confirmed. Liar Andrew McCabe from the FBI said there was nothing to the stories regarding Seth Rich. Sounds like the FBI is hiding something, and they don't want to hand over the documentation because they said there was an investigation, which most likely they lied about. Now, it is being reported that Maria Bartiromo is saying that the FISA report is going to be released on Friday, October 18th, which is in 8 days. Now, if that time frame for the IG report is accurate, that means the classification review has been completed. Any remaining classified information not specifically authorized in the Inspector General report, a decision granted to Bill Barr, would be placed in a classified appendix that is not available to the public. A publication date in and around October 18 would also mean the time allotted for principal review has expired. Generally, the people whose conduct is under review are granted a preview of the report that covers their activity. The IG may or may not include any response from the principles outlined. If the IG permits inclusion of a principal response, the IG usually outlines additional information to rebut or support the principal position. A final draft is then assembled only after the OIG administrative referencer makes a final review of all statements of fact and provides citations therein. So it might be released to the Justice Department, but the public is not going to see it yet. But if this actually goes through on the 18th, the panic meter for the deep state is going to go off the charts. Now, something very interesting with Planned Parenthood. Planned Parenthood Super PAC announced a $45 million electoral campaign to defeat Trump and Republicans in key Senate races. The investment will fund a large-scale grassroots organization, which is not going to be grassroots, and canvass digital television, radio, and mail programs. And we need to go back to post 2398 for this. This is November 3rd, 2018. Back then it says D-Party Con. When you can't raise money organically through party individual donations, voter base, you steal it from the American taxpayer and give it back to yourself in the form of campaign contributions. Example 1, Planned Parenthood. $1.5 billion provided in taxpayer funding over a 3-year period. Case 1. Planned Parenthood spent $30 million, disclosed real estimates close to $65 million in taxpayer subsidies to influence the outcome of the 2018 midterm elections. Conclusion. Should it be legal for a taxpayer D+R+I funded organization to donate massive amounts of money to the D party in an effort to sway an election? D insider term, T wash, reread drops, Soros, and taxpayer funding. Your hard-earned tax dollars at work. Vote, vote, vote. And once again, this is why Trump is defunding Planned Parenthood. Now, down at the border, we can see that Trump increased deportations of illegal aliens by 453% in the recent months. The border is secure. The wall is being built. Now, Trump did something very, very interesting. Trump signed executive orders that are designed to take much of the sting out of what conservatives believe is an out-of-control administrative state. The orders will limit the use of a tool the Trump administration believes short-circuits the rulemaking process. They take aim at federal guidance, which agencies can use to explain how they intend to implement policy. Trump is signing 2 executive orders protecting the rights of the American families and small businesses against bureaucratic abuse as he continues to hold government agencies accountable to the taxpayers. Many Americans learn of the rule only when agents come knocking at their door, he said. Americans will no longer be subject to hidden rules or hidden laws. The order gives Americans the opportunity to express their opinion before being targeted with fines and regulations. It will be the agency's duty to inform Americans of any new rules that might affect their lives and businesses. So Trump right now is saying, listen, anything that's created, it can't be hidden, and you just can't walk up to the door and say, okay, you just broke a rule or a law. The people have to be notified first of what is going on, and then they can express their opinion before being targeted with fines and regulations. So this is very, very interesting, and we can see that Trump is sticking up for the everyday person. Now, the deep state players, they are panicking over Syria. Remember, they're watching their entire plan go down the tubes, and they are at risk of being exposed. Now, Trump is out there, and he's maintaining optics, saying this is a bad thing that Erdogan's doing. He shouldn't be doing it. We can destroy them economically. But in reality, what Erdogan is doing, he's going after the terrorist groups, not the Kurds, not the Syrian soldiers, not the civilians. And we can see that certain countries, they are panicking. UK says they have serious concerns over Turkish offensive in Syria. France says Turkey operation jeopardizes security and humanitarian efforts. So these countries that were supporting this, and they're still part of the deep state system, they are panicking right now. And what Trump is doing, he's maintaining optics, saying this is a bad thing. We're going to be going after Turkey if they continue this. Now, you don't think that Putin and Erdogan and Trump and Erdogan, they all spoke to each other? Trump, his mission was to remove the troops from these fake wars that were created by the deep state, by the intelligence organizations. The terrorists within these countries, they are the paid mercenary armies. And you can see that the deep state, they're having a problem with this. The mainstream media is having a problem with this. The neocons are having a problem with this. They're freaking out about it because their entire plan has just been flushed down the toilet. Now, what's very interesting is that we've seen trolls and we've seen a lot of individuals becoming upset. They lash out. They're pissed off. They hate. And George Orwell explains why a society hates those who speak the truth, why people lash out when they hear the truth. The deep state knew that if they were able to spread propaganda lies, it would have a certain effect on the people. And here's a quote from George Orwell, which this guy was way ahead of his time. He said, "The further a society drifts from the truth, the more it will hate those that speak it." And you can see this is what we are seeing today. The truth is coming out, and the society, they hate it. And the deep state knew if they fed the public propaganda lies long enough, they would get this effect. And once again, they knew, and I'm talking about the deep state, they knew that truth, facts, evidence is the greatest weapon the patriots could ever wield. Nothing can stop it. Nothing the deep state can do. Doesn't matter if it's events. It doesn't matter if the mainstream media is pushing out propaganda. It doesn't matter about any of it. They will not be able to stop the truth weapon. Transparency, truth is the way forward. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.